Hello and welcome to the Marketing Woman podcast. I'm your host, Anusha and I'm so excited to have you here. Are you looking to move into marketing or want to learn marketing from scratch? We discuss all things marketing, analytics, business, personal branding, AI, and much more in a way any layman can understand. If you're new here, make sure to follow along and get on that email list by visiting anushakhannan.com/email list to get newsletters from me twice weekly. Follow at Anusha Ramesh Khannan on TikTok, at Anusha Ramesh Khannan on Instagram. Tag me on your stories. I would love to see that. And now let's dive in. Recording the 50th episode of the Marketing Women podcast. I did not think this day would ever come. To be completely honest, I did not think that I would get to the 50th episode of the podcast. And this is just such a profound moment for me. And I actually want to start off by sharing a little story about why this podcast came into place and why this name, and then dive into some lessons that I've picked up along the way. So I actually started this podcast because I have a background in engineering. I did my bachelor's in information technology and I moved to marketing, and I kind of did not have anybody to look up to. And I wanted to be that person in case someone decides to go through the same journey. The name Marketing Woman is because I always thought about like how people refer to someone saying, hey, that woman in marketing, or hey, that woman in finance, or hey, that woman in sales. And I was like, okay, maybe the Marketing Woman should just be the name. And no, the podcast is actually not about women in marketing. I want this podcast to be for everybody, anybody who wants to get into marketing. But of course, we will definitely have conversations about women in marketing, women in any department. That is totally a conversation that we definitely do have on this podcast. I chose the podcasting format because when I was in engineering college, I would kind of record myself studying. When I'm saying things out loud, I record it. And when I would actually go to exams, I would listen to myself talk, and that is how I would revise. I never actually picked up a book and revised it before an exam. I would always be listening to something, and a lot of my friends probably thought I was listening to music, but I was actually listening to my audio notes of me explaining concepts to myself. And it just stuck better with me because I would add a little bit of anecdote or jokes there, and it just worked out better for me. And I thought this format would actually resonate with a lot of people. I have 50 lessons I've written down here on my iPad, but before I get to that, I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much for literally all the support that everybody has shown me over the last couple of years of building this podcast. I honestly wanted to do this podcast just to help people and share my journey. I never really anticipated anybody to listen to the podcast in the first place. Ironically, being a marketing podcast, I did not have a marketing strategy in place. I did not even schedule a lot of things. I did not even have anything planned out. I just wanted to share my journey. And I just want to say thank you so much for being incredibly supportive and just so nice. I've received so many messages from so many of you, and I just want to appreciate you for that. Thanks a lot. This really means a lot to me. And I'm taking this episode to actually celebrate 50 episodes with you. And I also want to thank the guests that have been a part of this podcast because they've literally taken so much time out of their days, I'm saying, because they've actually pre-recording calls, during recording, and then post-recording. They've been so supportive and they've shown such interest. And I also want to appreciate the audience that have actually shown up and listened to the episodes that I've had guests on, because that shows that we value them and the content that they're putting out for us and how much time they spend. And I just want to appreciate everybody that has ever just paid attention to this podcast. It means so much to me. So I'm going to be very mindful of your time, and I'm going to dive into 50 lessons I've learned. And don't worry, this is not about podcasting. It's across all different things: marketing, analytics, content creation, a lot of different things. So yeah, stick until the end because I have an announcement that I'm making. All right, first up, marketing, my favorite topic. Why not start with that? I have 10 lessons I want to share with you. The first thing is your audience don't care about the product. They care about how you're solving their problems. Meaning always lead with the value, not the features. Many companies focus on, I have X, Y, and Z features. That is why you should buy my product. But more often than not, someone else also has the same thing. But it's about what type of customer support you have, what type of advocacy you have, what are people saying about you, how is it like to work with you? Because say what you will, business to business, business to consumer, it's still human to human. I'm still working with a human. I still have to talk to a sales rep. I still have to talk to a customer support person. So at the end of the day, if the company is not someone that I can get along with, in the long run, that is not going to work out for me. The second one is stop chasing virality and focus on consistency. So many people, especially with me growing up, watching a lot of people become famous through videos, we focus a lot on viral moments, which is great for brand awareness. But if you look at the long run, that is not going to help your brand in any way. Because let's say that you get 1 million followers from one video or one piece of content, but only 10 people actually know you. That is not a good percentage, right? If you have 50 followers and 50 of those, or let's say 30 people know you there, or 45 people know you there, that is a good percentage. So it's important to keep in mind, just because someone has 1 million followers does not mean they're all engaged. And just because someone has 50 followers does not mean that they're not a good creator. Number three, every brand is a storyteller. Customers connect with emotions, not sales pitches. When when I think about top 3 or 4 of my brands, I think about the founder. I think about the story that they share. I think about, for example, Rare Beauty. I've talked about that before on this podcast too. I like Rare Beauty because of how focused they are on certain things. And of course, there's always pros and cons with businesses. But as a consumer, I really do like Rare Beauty. And there are so many other products out there, and I don't know their story because they've not made it that apparent or they've not reached me as an audience. So it's very important to have good stories that you can tell your customers because certain stories resonate with certain people. Hello. For some reason, my fourth point got cut off. Anyways, the fourth point is social proof is underrated. A lot of people sleep on this because your customers are there for you. Your customers will tell you, will tell others why someone should choose your product, your service, your brand. They'll tell you, and you just gotta give them the opportunity to do that, which is a very ironic thing to say because I've never actually given you guys a lot of opportunities. So I have a feedback form in the description, and I want you to go check it out and tell me what you think about the podcast. If it's negative, tread lightly. I'm kidding. You really have to go and tell me what you think about the podcast, the good, the bad, everything. And I would really appreciate that. And yeah, that's the fourth point. Social proofs are underrated. Number 5, be where your audience is. It's not about getting them to where you are. It's about being where they are. It's not about being on all platforms. It's about being on the one that they're most engaged. Recently, I started exploring lots of different types of content for different types of platforms. And I realized that, let's say, for example, the marketing woman would not do so well on Pinterest or Snapchat because my target audience is not going to be there, or most likely. And I don't want to waste my time there. But if I focus on LinkedIn, if I focus on YouTube or TikTok, chances are I might find my audience there. So instead of telling people to come and meet me where I am, I'm focusing on going and meeting them where they are. Number 6, create content for conversations, not just clicks. One of the biggest mistakes that brands make is they're just pushing out content to say, hey, we exist. Cool. Good for you. Exist. Why should customers care about you? When you create content to create conversations, for example, if you say, hey, this is my story, this is where I am, this is where I was before, this is where I'm trying to go, people care about that because more often than not, they see themselves in you. So storytelling is mostly about you connecting with others. And when you do storytelling, your content creates engagement. And which in turn builds relationship, which in turn will build loyalty, which in turn will become your customer advocates. Number 7, data beats assumptions. Trust the numbers to guide your campaigns. When you have a good gut feeling, let's say that you think, oh, from ages 17 to 25, they might like this one. I feel like they would like this one, is it doesn't sit right with people. But if you say, hey, data shows that, we did a research and we had a focus group and they said X, Y, and Z, that's going to sit right with people because more often than not, unless you have really good authority or really good credibility, people don't really have any reason to trust you just by a word. Number 8, repurpose content. Don't reinvent the wheel. One idea can become a blog, a podcast, a carousel, or a reel. And I learned that by doing the marketing woman. I used to think that I had to make one blog post, one content piece there, one content piece over there. And I realized I don't really have to do that. This is my long form content. And I just have to repurpose what I'm saying here, but not copy paste it. Make different types of content, tailor what you're saying here to that particular format, and then push it out. That is going to work pretty well and also saves you a lot of time rather than you trying to make 7 different things. Number 9, a strong brand voice is non-negotiable. A lot of people miss out on this, and it's funny how people still don't know this. You have to speak a certain way. There are certain things about you that will just sit right with people. Mom always used to tell me certain people can relate to certain people. And that is how I look at brand voice. The way you speak might not hit the mark for everybody, but more often than not, hits the right people. And those are your people. You don't need 1 million people to understand you. You just need 10,000 or 10 people to actually get you. Under my marketing lessons, the last one is good marketing is invisible. True campaigns actually feel pretty natural, they don't feel forced. When you see campaigns that are like trying to sell you something, trying to sell you on their idea, you can see it and it doesn't sit right with you. Marketing is all about telling people that you're there to solve their problems and telling them that you exist. That is all I had for marketing, but let's jump into 10 lessons I learned about analytics and AI, the ones that are currently ruling the world. The first one is your data is only as good as questions you ask. Start with clear goals before diving into analytics. As someone that loves marketing, but also has worked as an analyst, I can tell you for a fact when two departments work together, they don't really know what they're doing. And this is not just with my experience. I've talked to a lot of people and I've seen this pattern repeat over and over. I talk to marketers and they don't know what kind of data to request from analysts and data analysts. And data analysts are often telling things like, oh, they want to do this and they want this data, but they don't get that there is a lot of discrepancy here. We don't have clean data to give them. We don't have that kind of, we cannot join a table to this one, something of that sort. So I think it's important for two departments to actually sit down and talk about why they need that data, what you're trying to solve versus what we have and how can we bridge that gap. I think those conversations don't happen as much as you would think that they should be happening. The second one is segmentation is key. Not every customer is the same and your strategy shouldn't treat them as such. Segmentation is such a huge deal on both ends. It's not a marketing thing, it's not a data thing, it's actually both. It's actually everything. Every single business needs that. But if you look at it, marketers need good data to actually segment. How would you know if the data is wrong? So data people have to take care of it. Data people can only take care of it if they know you have 8 different campaigns and what you're actually focusing on. So communication, again, the gap should not be there, which it still exists. It still exists. Number 3, AI is a tool, not a replacement for creativity. Use it to enhance, not replace your human touch. More often than not, I've been seeing a lot of comments on LinkedIn that are very AI generated, which is not wrong. And I think a lot of people also shit on it. They say, why are people using AI to comment on something? Sometimes you have a lot of things you want to say and you just want to articulate it, but you just don't know how to put it into words. Use ChatGPT to say it. But if you add a little bit of human touch to that, just to add like your little jokes, your little perspectives, little things that you will say when you're actually having a conversation with someone in person, that adds a lot more value. How would you use AI for work? Write like how you would talk. Talk like how you would talk. AI scripts are awesome, but at the same time, you need to remember you're talking to a human. And if you sound like a robot, they're going to know it. Number 4, customer journeys are not linear anymore, and analytics helps us map multi-touch point experiences. There are so many other things like dark funnel where you just don't know if someone's referring you. There's no point in even trying to figure that out. But if you can, with what you can see, if you see that your customer is struggling at some point, you have to make sure that you're there. Imagine that one of your friends is like trying to get to your house and they have a map and everything, but they're still stuck. They don't know if they have to take a left turn or right turn, and they keep calling you, but you don't pick up. That is not being a good friend. You would want your friend to get to your place safely, stress-free, right? So the same way, when your customers are trying to actually buy your product or service, you have to be there for them to help guide them. Number 5, personalization drives retention. AI helps us to give customers what they want exactly when they want it. I like AI for certain reasons because they help you kind of personalize. If you give all the data about a customer that you've collected and give it to AI, it will actually give you a precise view of what you can actually tell them. And another thing that I'll add here in terms of human touch is you need to focus on the things that they might have said to you in conversations, or you might pick up on for a certain age group that you might know that AI might not know. So adding that is how human touch works. Number 6, ethical AI matters. Diverse data inputs prevent reinforcing biases. We recently did an episode on how ICP, ideal customer profiling, does sometimes have biases when you're using AI. And Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, has actually also been talking a lot about this, which is AI does have biases because people that are training those models are also humans and their biases might go into that. It's very important to make sure that you're very mindful of that. But there are some times when we're training our own GPTs and we can indirectly reinforce biases. And it's very important to be mindful of that and have a very diverse data set. Number 7, dashboards don't solve problems. People do. Analytical tools are great, but human insights close the gap. As someone who's created a lot of dashboards, I'll tell you there are often times when we might miss out on one point or two because that is just not something that is available in the data. Sometimes we might not know that one salesperson dropped the meeting on the other salesperson on the 11th hour. We might never know that. And that might have flustered them. They might have not had a good conversation. That is why we might have not closed, or they might have needed water. There are so many other things that go into so many different cycles that we might not be a part of, or data might not be a part of. And when humans kind of enter that conversation, they understand this is what happened, this is how we can remedy the situation. That dashboards cannot tell you. So dashboards are amazing, but certain times you also need to make sure that you understand humans and the people that you work with. Number 8, predictive analytics is the future. In the world of tarot readings, if you're telling me that people don't want to know what's going to happen in the future, I find that incredibly hard to believe. People want to know what's going to happen. People want to be aware of where they're going to go, how the future is going to be, where am I going to get my next meal from. People want to know what their future is going to look like. We want to know if we'll see aliens. We want to know if the Northern Lights are going to be here again. We want to know if AI is going to take over the world. We want to know all these things. And predictive analytics is going to be such a huge part of the future. It already is, and it's going to just become more and more important. Number 9, vanity metrics lie. They really do. Likes and views do not mean success. Look deeper. If you see someone with 1 million followers, does not mean they have a good higher percentage of engagement rate, or even people that actually know they exist. And if you see someone who has 50 followers, don't think that they don't know anything. Chances are they have a highly engaged audience. And the last one is AI is only as smart as the data it's fed. Garbage in, garbage out. Prioritize quality data collection. People always shit on how sometimes your GPT does not give you the right kind of output. Yeah, you're supposed to train your GPT. And the way you train it is the kind of output it's going to give you. It's not easy. When people think that ChatGPT is going to give you something, you have to actually train your GPT. You have to tell it certain things. If I get into AI, I'll rant for an hour. It's something that learns from itself, right? It's learning from its own inputs and what you're saying to it. GPTs are trained. They learn from themselves. Whatever you tell them is how they're going to learn, and then they're going to give you output. They'll refine. The same process happens over and over again. So if your data looks bad, it's probably because your input is bad. 20 lessons down, 30 more to go. 4 lessons on personal branding. It's a journey that I've been figuring out as well. And I've been talking a lot about that on my podcast as well. The first thing is authenticity wins every time. People connect with the real you, not the polished version. If I sat here and told you that I am the CEO of a non-existent company, you would probably just be like, I don't think I believe her. And if I tell you that I know everything about marketing, you're not going to want to listen to this episode. But here I am telling you, I'm looking for a full-time job in marketing. I'm working part-time in marketing. I love marketing. I love data. I love AI. And I am also telling you that this is my 50th episode, and it took me so long to get to this one, and I never really thought I would get here. When you're authentic, you're relatable. When you're not authentic, you're not relatable. Therefore, people don't want to engage with you. Number 2, consistency builds credibility. People focus a lot on doing quality content, but I would say focus on showing up every day. Showing up every now and then. Be on top of people's mind, because it's just how you win trust. You would always trust a friend who shows up for you most of the times than the friend who never shows up for you. Number 3, your brand evolves with you. People fear that a personal brand is like, I've been this person for so long. If I shift, I might lose people. Yes, but you will also gain people that are meant to be on this journey with you. Number 4, value over visibility. First, start providing value. People often focus on becoming the top 1% within just 10 days of trying. That is not how anything works. No businesses work like that. Nothing works like that. The only way that you will get visibility if you start offering value. Next up, I have 5 business insights I want to share from working with brands and understanding how people run businesses and having conversations with different kinds of people. The first one is you cannot market a bad product. No matter how good your marketing is, if your product is bad, nobody's going to want to buy it. People can say that you can buy a milk and it'll make you 20 times smarter. But if the milk is expired, you don't really care about being smarter. You want it to be consumable, right? So that is what you need to focus on. The next one is small wins lead to big wins. If I didn't take a moment to celebrate that I'm making the 50th episode of this podcast, what really matters though? What really matters? Because if you do not celebrate the small moments, you will never have the momentum to keep going. If I don't celebrate this moment, I would probably not think about the scale, the place that I want to be versus where I started and where I am now. That's a huge win. And you have to celebrate that. And that is how you activate your reward system. And yes, I know this is not the Pivot to Balance podcast, But that is how you activate the reward system and it helps you keep going. Number three, saying no is a strategy. Not every opportunity is worth pursuing. Something I've never talked about anywhere is the Marketing Woman podcast has actually had a lot of opportunities to work with a lot of different brands and a lot of different podcasts. And I turned every single one of them down. And of course, I'm incredibly grateful to see that the podcast is getting the recognition that it deserves. But I also think it's important for me to keep my audience in mind and think about what they want and what actually serves them rather than focusing on just scaling, scaling, and scaling. And this podcast was always about me sharing my journey and just my learnings and what I talk with people in the industry. It was never about, oh, what can I get out of my audience? Fourth one is it's going to sound cheesy, but your network is your net worth. And you guys know that I don't like using the word networking. I like using the word building relationship. Networking, for some reason, sounds very transactional to me. And I love building meaningful relationships because that means it's like having a friendship. You'll know that sometimes it'll be there for you, sometimes they cannot be there for you. You know that you'll be there for them whenever you can, and sometimes you can't. And that's a good understanding to have. Number five, be ready to pivot. If the last 2 years have taught me anything, is that businesses needs change and you gotta be ready to adapt and thrive. One of the reasons I love doing so many things, even though I'm not working full time, is because I always feel like I have something to do. I never have to completely rely on something external to validate me. I love exploring new things, but I'm still looking for a full-time job, just in case you're hiring. But I'm just saying that I have a lot of different skill sets now because I'm always pursuing something or the other, and I'm ready to adapt and I'm ready to thrive. Now, I've got 10 more lessons, podcast and content creation lessons. And the first one is imperfect starts lead to amazing journeys. And the first episode, it's always the hardest, to be completely honest. I remember my first episode, I was recording in a studio apartment in Boston. I was living on the first floor. I would wake up at 3 a.m. to record the podcast episode because I used to live on the first floor, and past 6 a.m., I lived downtown Boston, so it was very noisy. There was a lot of traffic. Ironically, today, I recorded this episode like 4 times, and there's always been noise today. Some construction or the other has been happening. It was like 360 moment for me today. But I never really, I didn't put that much thought into the first episode. I thought nobody was going to watch it. So who really cares what I'm saying? I can just say something and then get away with it. But I also felt conscious because if someone did listen to it, and if it turns out to be bad, and I just decided I don't care. I'm going to put out the first episode. And just think about this for a moment. If I actually hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here talking about my 50th episode. Just saying, my first episode wasn't the greatest. My last episode might have not been the greatest, but it's all about producing content. It's all about being consistent. It's all about putting yourself out there. Number two, consistency beats perfection. Like I was saying, it's better to post than to perfect it constantly. There is no such thing as perfection. It's all very subjective. What is perfect to me might not seem perfect to you. What is perfect to you might not seem perfect to me. It's a very subjective lens to view things from. And I would say be consistent. You will learn, because when you're consistent, you kind of look at yourself, you learn from your mistakes, you learn how you can be better, and that drives you to become better. And that is what's most important than thinking that you have to be perfect from day one. Number three, something that I don't do with the podcast, but I do with my content, which is batch recording saves lives. It saves so much time, and it's the only way to have quality content out there and be consistent. I don't do that with the podcast. I never actually batch record the podcast because I always want to talk about something that's fresh on my mind. So, but I do think with content, other type of content that I put out on Instagram or TikTok, I do sometimes, most of the times, batch create them. Number four, the audience grows over time. Patience is your best friend in content creation. People always focus on getting the viral moment in 10 videos. I watch so many videos about creators, and they often say, like, it took me 250 episodes to actually get to my first 1,000 listeners. Okay. A little side brag, Marketing Woman podcast has over 1,000 plays, and we're only on the 50th episode. Just a small brag. But I think it's also like with followers and engagement, you don't have to focus so much in the first few or even the first 1,000. You don't have to just put out content because you're still learning. You're still learning a lot through the journey. That's what you should focus on rather than focusing on, oh my God, I don't have a million followers. I'm not famous. I'm not getting invited to Met Gala. Focus on what's important. Number five, your energy sets the tone. If I showed up to this recording like, as the 50th episode, awesome. Thanks for being here. I just have 50 lessons I want to share with you. You probably would not even understand what I'm doing. You would feel my energy. You would think that I'm not interested. But showing up with energy that I am actually really excited about this episode, and I'm really grateful that you're actually sitting here listening to me talk for this long, it people can tell, and that is very important for you to keep in mind when you're creating content. Number 6 is repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. I learned that through creating podcasts is you don't have to, again, like I said in the beginning, one podcast can become 10 pieces of content. We have to be mindful about not copy pasting and creating and curating every single format, every single content according to the format. Number 7, engage with your audience. Please do not act like a celebrity. People know you're not a celebrity. Even if you are a celebrity, please talk to people. It's okay to engage with people that are taking their time out of their day to engage with your content and the stuff that you put out. Respond to DMs, respond to their messages, ask them for feedback. I'm asking you for feedback. I've actually never done that. Can you actually please go to the description, use the form there, and tell me your feedback, or leave a comment on Spotify? Because I think it's one of the biggest ways you can actually learn about what you're doing right and wrong. And I want to do that. And I want your input to help make this podcast a better one for you. Number 8, monetize without losing your authenticity. I've had a lot of people ask me this question when they want to start their own podcast. Of course, I don't monetize my podcast. I don't monetize anything that I do. But if I were to give you some insight, I would say put your audience over everything. Your audience have been there for you from day one. They are your real MVPs. Do not put anything else above them, because if they leave, what are you going to sponsor really? Number 9, your guests are your co-creators. I've had some awesome guests and they're all creators, and every interview feels like a collaboration. For me, I always think about when I'm having someone on the podcast, yes, of course, I really respect them. I really want them to give something that I can learn, and of course you guys can learn. But I also think it's about them connecting with you guys, them connecting and talking to you guys. And I respect how much you guys have shown up and told me that you like these episodes. But when you treat your guests like that, it adds a lot more value. Number 10, the last one, is keep learning. That is that should have been like my first lesson. With complete transparency, I've been having some conversations this last year with people, and they always tell me, when I ask them for advice, when I ask them, hey, what do you think I should do in this situation? They always end up telling me, you're asking us advice? You want us to tell you what to do? And that always makes me think there is no such thing as someone who knows everything. I have no business telling people what to do, but I still tell them. Because sometimes it's okay to tell people something. It's okay to assume that they might not know everything. If they know it, great. I just reminded you of something that you already know. But I'm someone that loves to keep learning. I will never be that person that thinks I know everything. I'll always be the person that thinks that there is so much I can learn to improve my craft. So those are the 50 lessons I learned from creating this podcast. So what is next for the Marketing Woman? I said I'll have an announcement for you. What is the announcement? What am I actually doing? Let me just say that I'm working on something pretty exciting, more value, more valuable, more value add, just really exciting stuff, fresh topics, fresh perspectives, fresh formats, and incredible people that I'm working with. So if you want to see all about that, if you want to stay updated in real life, follow me on Instagram at Anusha_Ramesh. I would love to take you behind the scenes. I post and yap a lot on there as well, and you can see a little bit about my day-to-day life. But yes, I'm leaving you on a little bit of cliffhanger because I'm actually very excited about this one, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. But again, I want to take a moment to say thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. Whether you've been here since the day one trailer episode or you just started here, I really could not have done this without you. I would love, love, love to learn what your favorite episode is and what you really like about this podcast or what you don't like about this podcast and who your favorite guest was, because I am actually going to make an episode covering all the things I've learned from my guests. So let me know if you have any questions, DM me, comment, tag me, and here's to the next 50 episodes of the Marketing Woman podcast. I cannot wait to share the 100th milestone with you. That's all for today. Hope you find it useful. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me at anusha@anushakanan.com. Follow me on LinkedIn to never miss my journey, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.